After Thanksgiving dinner, I checked my bank account. Everything was gone. My daughter laughed. We needed it more than you. Nobody warns you that betrayal tastes like pumpkin pie going cold on your tongue, that the hands carving turkey at your table might be the same ones emptying your life savings while you sleep. I'm Florence Williams, 68 years old, and until 3 days ago, I believed family meant sanctuary. I was catastrophically wrong. The house still smelled like cinnamon and roasted turkey when my world collapsed at 9:23 p.m. Thanksgiving had been perfect, the kind of perfect that makes you believe you've done something right with your life. My grandchildren's artwork still decorated the refrigerator. Karen's laugh still echoed in corners of rooms. The dining table held pie crumbs and the gentle chaos of a family that felt whole. I sat at my kitchen counter with chamomile tea cooling between my palms, that pleasant exhaustion settling into my bones. The good kind, the kind that comes from feeding people you love. My phone glowed beside me. I opened the banking app without thinking, just my nightly ritual, the small reassurance that tomorrow would be secure. The number stared back at me like a scream frozen in digital silence. $0 and 0 cents. Not possible. I blinked, refreshed. The screen reloaded with the same impossible truth. Checking, $0 and 0 cents. Savings, $0 and 0 cents. Emergency fund, $0 and 0 cents. 23 years of careful saving. Every skipped restaurant meal. Every coupon clipped. Every Christmas where I bought myself nothing so my daughter could have everything. Gone. My chest tightened. The teacup trembled in my grip, liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim. Mom? Karen's voice cut through the roaring in my ears. She had stepped back inside, forgotten her phone charger, she had said earlier. Now she stood in my kitchen doorway, her expression shifting from casual to alert. I couldn't speak, couldn't form words around the disaster filling my mouth like cotton. I turned the phone toward her with shaking hands. Karen looked at the screen, looked at me, and then she snorted. A small dismissive sound like I'd shown her a typo in a grocery list. "Oh, that," Karen said, waving one hand as if swatting away something trivial. "Relax, Mom, we needed it." The words arrived in English, but made no sense. We needed it? My voice sounded foreign, small. Karen shrugged, leaning against my counter like we were discussing weather. Bills, repairs, Tyler's business opportunity. We're drowning and you have money just sitting there doing nothing. Her tone sharpened, defensive before I'd even accused her of anything. You already lived your life. We're trying to survive ours. The kitchen tilted. My reflection in the window behind Karen looked like a stranger, older, smaller, collapsing inward. You don't have a mortgage. You barely spend anything. It's not like you'll miss the money, Mom. Don't start with the guilt trip. I opened my mouth, closed it. No sound emerged. Karen took my silence as permission to continue her justification, her rationalization, her casual destruction of my financial life. You always say you want to help family. Well, you helped. Then she was gone. The door clicked shut with finality.
I sat alone in my kitchen. The same kitchen where I'd fed her as a child, where I'd packed her school lunches, where I'd celebrated every milestone, and felt something inside me that had bent for decades, finally, cleanly, snap. This wasn't help. This was theft. And tomorrow, everything would change. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that zero staring back at me like an accusation. The phone rang at 8:47 a.m., jolting me from where I had been staring at cold coffee. Mrs. Williams, this is Patricia Chen from First National Bank's Fraud Prevention Department. My stomach dropped before she even continued. We've detected multiple suspicious transfers from your accounts over the past 8 weeks. I need to verify some information with you. 8 weeks. 2 months of someone systematically dismantling my financial life while I volunteered at the community center, while I baked cookies for church fundraisers, while I lived my ordinary, trusting life. Mrs. Williams, these transfers required password resets, changes to your security questions, and rerouting of transaction alerts to a different phone number. My hand tightened on the phone. A different number? Yes, ma'am. All notifications were redirected so you wouldn't receive them. The room spun. Someone who knew me, knew my mother's maiden name, my first pet, the street I grew up on, had methodically locked me out of my own financial awareness. By law, we're required to report this as suspected elder financial exploitation, Patricia said gently. I've already filed with local authorities. Elder exploitation. The phrase landed like a physical blow. I wasn't just robbed. I was a victim, a statistic, an old woman taken advantage of by someone she trusted. Shame burned through me, hot and acidic. But underneath it, something colder began crystallizing. Anger. 2 hours later, a firm knock echoed through my house. I opened the door to 2 police officers, one tall, with graying temples, the other younger, with sharp, observant eyes. Mrs. Williams, I'm Officer Reyes. This is Officer Cheng. May we come in? They sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Karen had dismissed my devastation with a shrug. Officer Reyes pulled out a notepad while Officer Cheng opened a tablet. Walk us through when you first noticed the discrepancy, Reyes said, his voice carrying a kindness that made my throat tight. I told them everything. The Thanksgiving discovery, Karen's casual admission, the years of helping, giving, sacrificing. Officer Cheng's fingers moved across her tablet, pulling up information that made her expression harden. Mrs. Williams, we've reviewed the preliminary bank report. These weren't random transactions. They occurred every Tuesday and Thursday over the past 2 months. Tuesday and Thursday. My volunteering days. The days I was predictably absent from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. Whoever did this knew your schedule, Reyes added. They waited until you were out to execute transfers. That's not opportunistic theft. That's calculated. The words settled over me like ice water. The access required detailed personal information, security questions, previous passwords, possibly physical access to documents or devices in your home. My mind flashed to small inconsistencies I'd dismissed. A drawer left slightly open, mail that seemed shuffled, my checkbook not quite where I'd left it. This level of knowledge suggests someone close to you, someone with regular access to your home and your routine. Karen's face materialized in my mind, her casual dismissal, her complete lack of surprise. We needed it. We'll need a complete statement, Cheng said. Names of anyone with keys to your home, anyone who knows your banking information, anyone who might have motive.
I gave them Karen's name. My voice cracked saying it, but I said it. The officers exchanged a glance that told me they'd suspected as much. After they left, promising a full investigation and a case number I clutched like a lifeline, I sat in my kitchen, surrounded by silence so thick it felt suffocating. My daughter had robbed me. Methodically, deliberately,
Over 8 weeks of Tuesdays and Thursdays while I helped strangers and believed my family was safe. The betrayal settled into my bones, cold and permanent. But so did something else. Resolve. The mail became a daily assault. Monday brought a credit inquiry notification from a financing company I'd never contacted. Tuesday delivered statements from accounts I'd never opened. Wednesday arrived with a collections notice for a debt that wasn't mine. Each envelope felt like evidence of a crime I was only beginning to understand the scope of. I spread them across my kitchen table, a paper trail of betrayal growing wider by the hour. My hands shook as I opened a thick envelope from a credit monitoring service, triggered automatically by suspicious activity. Inside, a detailed report of purchases made in my name over the past 2 months. Electronics, designer handbags, restaurant charges at places I'd never heard of, a weekend spa package, furniture deliveries. My stomach turned. This wasn't survival. This wasn't desperation. This was someone living a life they couldn't afford on money they'd stolen from a woman who'd raised them. Then I found it. Buried in a stack of bank transfers, a $2,500 payment to TK Consulting Solutions. I pulled out my laptop, fingers clumsy on the keys. A quick search revealed the truth. TK Consulting Solutions was registered to Tyler Kemper 3 months ago. No website, no client list, no legitimate business activity. Just a shell company designed to funnel my money into their accounts. They'd planned this, created infrastructure, built a system to rob me. The front door opened without warning. Karen walked in, using the key I'd given her years ago for emergencies. She stopped when she saw me surrounded by evidence, her expression flickering between annoyance and something that might have been guilt. "Mom, we need to talk." "We certainly do." My voice came out steadier than I felt. Karen crossed her arms defensively. "I don't understand why you're overreacting. Families help each other. You act like we committed some crime." "You did." I held up the statement for TK Consulting. "You created a fake company to steal from me. You forged documents. You accessed my accounts without permission. Forged is such an ugly word. What would you call it?" Karen's jaw tightened. "We were drowning, Mom. Do you know what it's like to watch your bills pile up while your mother sits on money she's not even using? That money was for my security, my independence, so I'd never become a burden. Well, congratulations. You're a burden now anyway. A burden making everyone's life harder with this legal drama." The front door opened again. Karen appeared, his face pale when he saw the documents spread across the table. His eyes met mine for a fraction of a second before darting away. "I'll wait in the car," he muttered, retreating immediately. The guilt written across his features told me everything. He knew. He'd helped. And now he was terrified of consequences. Karen watched him go, something cracking in her defensive facade. "Mom, if you just drop this—" "No." The word came out sharp, final. "You don't get to steal my future and then demand I stay quiet to protect yours." I stood, gathering the evidence into a folder with hands that no longer shook. "I gave you everything, my time, my money, my unconditional love. And you took the one thing I asked you to respect, my independence." Karen's eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't tell if they were genuine or strategic. "I'm not staying quiet," I continued. "Not for you, not for Tyler, not for anyone who thinks my age makes me disposable." I picked up my phone and dialed the number Officer Reyes had given me. Karen's face went white. "What are you doing?" "What I should have done the moment you said we needed it." The shame that had paralyzed me was gone. In its place, resolve, cold and unshakable. The knock came at dusk, soft and hesitant. Mr. Blake stood on my porch, his weathered hands twisting the brim of his hat. We'd been neighbors for 12 years, the kind of relationship built on friendly waves and occasional borrowed tools. "Florence, can I talk to you for a minute?" Something in his expression made my chest tighten. "Of course, come in." He shook his head. "I'll just be a moment. I should have said something sooner, but I didn't want to seem like I was meddling." The evening light cast long shadows across his troubled face. "I've seen Karen coming into your house, on Thursdays mostly, over the past couple months." He shifted his weight uncomfortably. "I thought you'd given her a key for emergencies or something, but after hearing about, well, the police cars the other day," the world tilted slightly. "What time on Thursdays?" My voice sounded distant. "Usually around 11. She'd be inside for an hour, sometimes longer. I figured she was helping you with something, checking on the house while you were out." Thursdays. My volunteering days at the community center, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. like clockwork. Everyone knew my schedule. I'd mentioned it dozens of times, proud of my consistency, my commitment. They'd used my goodness as a weapon. "I never gave Karen a key, Mr. Blake." His face went pale. "Oh, God, Florence, I'm so sorry. I should have—" "You couldn't have known." But my mind was already rewinding through the past months. The drawer in my bedroom that never quite closed right anymore. I'd blamed old wood, humidity, mail that seemed shuffled when I returned home. I assumed I'd left it that way. My checkbook moved from the left side of my desk to the right. I thought I was becoming forgetful. The spare house key that went missing from my junk drawer 3 months ago, I figured it had fallen behind something. But it hadn't fallen. It had been stolen. My daughter had stolen my house key, copied it, and used it to enter my home every week while I was out serving meals to people in need. She'd walked through my rooms, touched my things, searched my drawers, photographed my documents, all while I believed she was at work, living her life, managing her own responsibilities. The violation crashed over me in waves. This wasn't just theft of money. It was invasion of the only space that was truly mine, the home I'd worked 30 years to pay off, the sanctuary where I should have been safe. "Mr. Blake, would you be willing to tell the police what you saw?" "Absolutely, whatever you need." After he left, I stood in my living room, seeing everything differently. The couch where she'd sat during visits, probably counting hours until she could return alone. The hallway leading to my bedroom where she'd rifled through my personal papers. The kitchen table where she'd dismissed my devastation with a shrug. My home had been violated by the person I'd trusted most. I picked up my phone with trembling hands and searched for attorneys specializing in elder financial abuse. The first firm that answered connected me with Mariah West. "Miss West, my daughter has been robbing me, and I need someone who won't tell me to forgive her for the sake of family." "Mrs. Williams," she said, her voice carrying steel wrapped in compassion, "I'm very good at making sure people face exactly what they've done. When can you come in?" "Tomorrow morning. I'll be ready." Mariah West's office occupied the 3rd floor of a renovated brownstone downtown. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a handshake that conveyed both strength and understanding. "Tell me everything," she said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. "Start from the beginning." I did. The words poured out. Thanksgiving, the empty account, Karen's dismissal,
The mail, Mr. Blake's revelation. Mariah listened without interrupting, taking notes in precise handwriting. When she finished, she leaned back and tapped her pen against her legal pad. Mrs. Williams, what you're describing isn't just theft. It's a coordinated operation involving multiple criminal elements. She counted them on her fingers. Forgery of authorization documents, unauthorized access to financial accounts, identity manipulation through security question changes, and elder financial exploitation, which carries enhanced penalties in this state. The clinical terms made it real in a way Karen's casual cruelty hadn't. I'm going to assemble a team, Mariah continued. We need digital forensics to reconstruct the electronic trail, a banking fraud expert to analyze the transaction patterns, and a private investigator to document everything outside the digital sphere. Within 2 days, her office became a war room. David Chen, the forensic specialist, set up his laptop on Mariah's conference table and began pulling data I didn't know existed. Every login leaves a footprint. Device identifiers, IP addresses, geolocation data. We'll know exactly when, where, and how your accounts were accessed. Patricia Okonkwo, the banking expert, reviewed my statements with the focus of a surgeon. These transfers follow a pattern: small amounts first, testing the waters, then progressively larger. Classic escalation behavior. The private investigator, James Riley, was a former detective with silver hair and the patient demeanor of someone who'd seen every kind of human darkness. I'll track the money after it left your accounts, where it went, what it bought, who benefited. By the end of the week, the evidence began forming a devastating picture. David showed me device logs on his screen. These unauthorized logins, they came from a laptop registered to Karen Kemper. Same device, multiple access points over 8 weeks. Patricia highlighted transaction timestamps. Every single transaction occurred between 10:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Someone knew exactly when you'd be gone. Then, James arrived with something that made my stomach drop. He said, I tracked some of the purchases to a pawn shop called Mason's Exchange. He opened his tablet showing grainy surveillance footage. The owner keeps security recordings for 6 months. He pressed play. The footage showed Karen and Tyler entering the shop, carrying electronics still in their boxes. The timestamp read 2:47 p.m. 3 weeks ago, a Thursday. They approached the counter, negotiated briefly, then walked out with cash. Cash bought with my money, items purchased on credit opened in my name, then pawned immediately to hide the trail. James advanced to another clip. Same pawn shop, different day. Tyler alone this time, selling a designer handbag, still with tags attached. They weren't even pretending anymore, James said quietly. They were laundering your money through merchandise, converting it to untraceable cash. I stared at the frozen image of my daughter's face on the screen, smiling, relaxed, completely unburdened by guilt. My hands trembled, but not from weakness, from validation. We have enough, Mariah said, her voice carrying quiet fury on my behalf. More than enough. Now we make them answer for every penny.
David called me back to Mariah's office 3 days later. His expression carried the gravity of someone about to deliver a diagnosis. Mrs. Williams, I've completed the digital reconstruction. You need to see this. He opened his laptop, revealing a timeline that looked like something from a crime documentary. Color-coded entries stretched across the screen, each one a moment my life was being dismantled without my knowledge. Let's start with the first breach, David said, pointing to a red marker dated 8 weeks prior. September 14th, 10:52 a.m. Someone accessed your online banking from a device registered to Karen Kemper's home network. He pulled up the technical data, IP address, device fingerprint, browser information, all pointing to Karen's laptop. They initiated a password reset using your email, which brings us here. He clicked to another screen. Your email account was accessed from the same device 17 minutes earlier. My breath caught. She was in my email? For approximately 40 minutes, long enough to intercept the password reset confirmation, change your banking credentials, and delete all evidence of the intrusion from your inbox and trash folders. The violation went deeper than I'd imagined. She hadn't just stolen money, she'd invaded every digital space I occupied. David continued, his finger tracing the timeline. September 18th, Thursday, 11:15 a.m. First transfer, $800. September 21st, Tuesday, 11:47 a.m., $1,200. September 25th, Thursday, 12:03 p.m., $1,500. The amounts escalated as their confidence grew. Notice the timing, David said. Every single transaction falls within your volunteer hours. They waited until you left the house, accessed your accounts from home, executed transfers, then logged out before you returned. He pulled up another document, access logs from my email provider. They didn't just monitor your bank, they read your personal correspondence, checked your calendar. One entry shows them accessing an email from your doctor's office confirming an appointment, probably to verify your schedule. The clinical precision of it made me feel sick. This wasn't opportunistic theft, David said, meeting my eyes. This wasn't desperation or a moment of weakness. This was a coordinated, methodical plan executed over 2 months with full knowledge of what they were doing. The words landed like physical blows. My daughter had studied me, tracked my movements, exploited my predictability, turned my routines, my volunteering, my doctor's visits, my reliable, trustworthy life into vulnerabilities. The sob came from somewhere deep, erupting before I could stop it, not from weakness or self-pity, but from the crushing weight of truth. Mariah's hand found my shoulder. "Florence, this isn't your fault." "She planned it," my voice cracked. "For weeks she planned how to rob me." "Yes," David said quietly. "And now we have documented proof of every moment." I wiped my eyes, straightening in my chair. The tears were real, but so was the steel forming in my spine. "What do we do with this?" Mariah's smile was sharp. "We bury them with it." Mariah's office felt smaller than usual, the walls seeming to press inward as she set a digital recorder on the desk between us. "This is the piece that will end any negotiation before it starts," she said, her voice low and steady. A recorded confession, in Karen's own words. "But Florence, I need to be clear. This will be hard. You'll need to stay calm, keep her talking, and not react no matter what she says." My hands trembled in my lap. "What if I can't?" You can. Mariah's eyes held mine. You've survived everything she's done to you. You can survive 10 minutes on the phone. David Chen adjusted the recording equipment, running a test that crackled through the speakers. We'll capture everything. Audio quality will be crystal clear for court. James Riley leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Keep the conversation casual at first. Let her feel safe. People confess when they think they're winning. I stared at my phone like it was a weapon I didn't know how to use. What do I say? Mariah handed me a notepad with bullet points. Start by saying you want to talk about what happened. Don't accuse, just open the door. Let her walk through it herself. My finger hovered over Karen's contact. The photo beside her name showed her laughing at last Christmas, before I knew what she was capable of, before everything shattered. I pressed call. It rang 3 times. Each tone felt like a countdown to detonation. "Mom?" Karen's voice carried that familiar edge of annoyance. "What do you want? I'm in the middle of something." "I just wanted to talk," I said, forcing my voice to stay even. "About what happened. About the money." A heavy sigh crackled through the speaker. "Are you seriously still on this? I told you." "I know what you told me.
But I need to understand, for my own peace of mind. Silence stretched between us, and I feared she'd hang up. Then, fine. What do you want to understand? Mariah gave me an encouraging nod. How did you access my accounts? I'm just trying to piece it together. Karen's laugh was sharp, bitter. It wasn't rocket science, Mom. Tyler figured out your passwords. You use the same one for everything, your birthday backward. Seriously? The casual cruelty in her voice made my chest tighten, but I pressed forward. And the security questions? Please, I'm your daughter. I know where you grew up, your first pet's name, all that stuff. You literally tell those stories at every family dinner. She said it like I was stupid for trusting her with my history. So, you both did this together. You and Tyler. Obviously, impatience sharpened her words. He set up the transfers. I handled the logistics. It's not like you were using the money anyway, Mom. It was just sitting there. Mariah's eyes gleamed. She made a circular motion with her hand. Keep going. But it was my money, Karen. My savings. Your money that you just waste on old people things. Her voice rose, defensive and ugly. We're drowning in debt while you sit on $60,000 doing nothing with it. We deserve it more than you do. The number hit me like a physical blow. 60,000. Everything I'd saved. We took it, Karen continued, her tone shifting to righteous indignation. We needed it and we took it. And honestly, you should be thanking us for finally putting it to good use instead of letting it rot in some account earning nothing. My vision blurred. Mariah squeezed my hand, anchoring me. You really think you deserve my life savings? I whispered. You already lived your life, Mom. We're trying to build ours. Maybe if you weren't so selfish, you'd understand that. The line went dead. I sat frozen, the phone still pressed to my ear, Karen's words echoing in the silence. Mariah stopped the recording. The red light blinked off. That, she said quietly, is the nail in their coffin. David was already downloading the file, creating backups, preparing transcripts. James whistled low. That's the most complete confession I've heard in 20 years of investigations. But I couldn't speak, couldn't move. The weight of Karen's words pressed down on me, not just what she admitted, but how easily she said it, how little remorse colored her voice. Mariah knelt beside my chair. Florence, look at me. I met her eyes, tears streaming down my face. She just handed us everything we need. Criminal charges, civil recovery, restraining orders, all of it. She's done. The tears weren't from weakness anymore. They were from finality. My daughter had destroyed herself with her own words, and there was no going back. The courthouse steps felt impossibly steep. Each one required deliberate effort. My legs trembling beneath me as Mariah's steadying hand guided my elbow. You've got this, she murmured. Just breathe. Inside, the courtroom smelled of old wood and stale air. The gallery was sparse. A few court observers, Mr. Blake, who'd insisted on coming for support, and in the back row, my grandchildren with their other grandmother. They wouldn't look at me. Karen and Tyler sat at the defendant's table with their attorney, a nervous-looking man who kept shuffling papers. Karen's face was carefully composed, but her foot tapped an anxious rhythm beneath the table. All rise. Judge Margaret Thornton entered, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and eyes that had clearly seen every manipulation humans were capable of. The proceedings began with Mariah's opening statement, clinical and devastating. Then came the evidence. David Chen took the stand first, his laptop connected to the courtroom's display screen. These are the digital access logs from Mrs. Williams' bank accounts, he said, pulling up the timeline I'd seen in Mariah's office. Every unauthorized entry originated from this device. The screen showed Karen's laptop identifier.
Registered to the defendant's home network. Color-coded timestamps filled the screen. Red markers for every breach, every transfer, every theft. Notice the pattern, David continued. Tuesday and Thursday mornings between 10:30 a.m. and 2 p.m., corresponding exactly with Mrs. Williams' volunteer schedule. Karen's attorney objected weakly. This proves nothing about intent. Then let's discuss intent, Mariah interrupted smoothly. She nodded to David, who pulled up the email access logs. The defendants accessed Mrs. Williams' emails 17 times over 8 weeks. They read her calendar, monitored her appointments, tracked her movements. David's voice hardened. They even accessed a confirmation email from her doctor to verify when she'd be away from home. The judge's expression darkened. Patricia Okonkwo presented next, her banking analysis methodical and damning. The transfers show clear escalation, small amounts initially, $800, $1,200, testing whether they'd be noticed, then larger sums as confidence grew. The final transfer, executed November 20th, emptied the remaining $15,000 in one transaction. She displayed the forged authorization documents. These signatures don't match Mrs. Williams' verified signature on file. Forensic analysis confirms they're crude forgeries. Karen whispered urgently to her attorney, but he looked lost. Then, James Riley took the stand. I traced the money's destination, he said, pulling up bank statements on the screen. 60% went directly to Tyler Kemper's business account, TK Consulting Solutions, a shell company with no legitimate clients or revenue. The remaining 40% was converted to merchandise, then pawned for cash. The pawn shop footage played on the screen. Karen and Tyler, laughing, carrying electronics. Tyler alone, selling a designer handbag. The timestamps burned into the bottom of each frame. Karen's face had gone white. And now, Mariah said, her voice cutting through the courtroom's heavy silence, the defendant's own words. She held up the digital recorder. Karen's attorney shot to his feet. Objection! We weren't informed. The recording was obtained legally, Judge Thornton said flatly. I'll allow it. Proceed. Mariah pressed play. Karen's voice filled the courtroom, tinny but unmistakable. David figured out your passwords. It wasn't rocket science, Mom.
Karen's hand flew to her mouth. We took it. We needed it, and we took it. Tyler slumped in his chair, his face buried in his hands. You weren't using the money anyway. We deserve it more than you do. The recording continued, each word a hammer blow. Karen's cruel dismissal of my old people things, her righteous indignation, her complete lack of remorse. When it ended, the silence was absolute. Judge Thornton leaned forward, her gaze fixed on Karen. Do you deny that's your voice? Karen's mouth opened, closed. Tears streamed down her face, but they looked like panic, not remorse. I didn't mean, Mom, please. Answer the question, the judge said coldly. It's me. Karen's voice broke. But you don't understand. We were desperate. You were calculated. Judge Thornton's words cut like a blade. You studied your mother's routine. You infiltrated her email. You forged documents. You created shell companies to hide your theft. This wasn't desperation. This was premeditated elder financial exploitation. Tyler tried to speak, his voice shaking. Your Honor, Karen said her mom wanted to help. Stop. The judge's hand rose. I've heard the evidence. I've seen the footage. I've listened to your confession. The only question now is consequences. She turned to me, her expression softening slightly. Mrs. Williams, do you wish to make a statement? I stood, my legs steadier than I expected. I gave my daughter everything, my time, my love, my trust. She took the one thing I asked her to respect, my independence, my security, my future, and she did it without remorse, without hesitation, without even the decency to ask. My voice didn't shake. I don't want revenge. I want justice, and I want my money back. The judge nodded slowly. The evidence is overwhelming, she said. I'm ordering full restitution of $58,347 to Mrs. Williams, plus legal fees and damages. I'm referring this case to criminal court for felony elder abuse charges and identity theft. Karen sobbed openly now, her attorney's hand on her shoulder doing nothing to comfort her. And I'm issuing a restraining order. The defendants are prohibited from contacting Mrs. Williams or coming within 500 feet of her residence. The gavel came down with finality. I stood, gathered my purse, and walked toward the exit. No triumph, no satisfaction, just relief, clean and overwhelming, washing through me like light. Behind me, Karen's voice rose in desperate pleading, but I didn't turn back. The courthouse doors opened to afternoon sun, and I stepped through them into air that felt easier to breathe. Mariah appeared beside me. You did it. We did it, I corrected softly. Mr. Blake waited at the bottom of the steps, his weathered face creased with pride. Florence, he said simply, offering his arm. I took it, and together we walked away from the courthouse, leaving the wreckage of betrayal behind. My daughter had stolen my savings, but she couldn't steal my dignity. That I'd reclaimed myself. The first restitution payment arrived 6 weeks after the trial. $5,000, a fraction of what was stolen, but it felt like vindication given physical form. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the bank transfer confirmation on my laptop screen, and for the first time in months, I breathed without that crushing weight on my chest.
Mariah had warned me that full recovery would take time. Karen and Tyler's assets had been seized. The furniture bought with my money, the electronics, even Tyler's truck. The shell company accounts were frozen and liquidated, but the cash they'd already spent was gone, converted into experiences and meals and temporary comfort that couldn't be reclaimed. They'll be on a court-ordered repayment plan for years, Mariah had explained. Every paycheck garnished until you're made whole. Karen was also ordered into mandatory therapy as part of her probation. I didn't know if it would change her. Didn't know if she'd ever understand what she'd taken from me, beyond just money. I didn't ask. The restraining order meant I'd never have to know. Tyler faced harsher consequences. His criminal charges included identity theft, fraud, and conspiracy. The prosecutor pushed for prison time given the premeditation and scope of the crime. His consulting business, the fake one and the legitimate one he'd been trying to start, collapsed entirely. I felt no joy in his destruction, but I felt no guilt either. He'd made his choices. Now he lived with them. What surprised me was the community. Mr. Blake organized a neighborhood support network, checking in on me daily. The community center, when they learned what happened, honored me at their annual volunteer dinner, not as a victim, but as someone who'd fought back and won. My church family rallied around me with meals, companionship, and quiet presence that didn't require me to explain or justify anything. You taught us something, Pastor Michelle said during one visit, that grace doesn't mean tolerating abuse, that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting consequences. Her words settled into me, reframing what I'd been struggling with. I could forgive Karen someday, maybe, not for her sake, but for mine. But I would never forget what she'd done, and I would never let anyone make me feel guilty for protecting myself. 3 months after the trial, the community center asked if I'd lead a workshop on financial safety for seniors. I almost said no. The thought of standing in front of people, admitting what had happened, exposing my vulnerability, it felt impossible. But then I thought about all the others, the quiet ones who wouldn't fight back, who'd let families steal from them out of shame or misplaced loyalty. They needed to hear this. I said yes. The workshop was scheduled for a Saturday morning. I arrived early, my hand shaking as I set up the presentation David Chen had helped me create. Charts showing common exploitation patterns, warning signs, resources, legal protections. 23 people attended. Most were my age or older. Many came alone. I recognized that look in their eyes, the careful guardedness of people who'd been hurt by those they trusted. I stood at the front of the room, took a deep breath, and began. My name is Florence Williams. 6 months ago, my daughter stole everything I'd saved over 23 years. The room went still. She used my love against me, my trust, my predictability, and she did it without remorse, believing I'd never fight back. I clicked to the next slide, the timeline of thefts, the access logs, the evidence that convicted her. I'm here to tell you 3 things. My voice grew stronger. First, it's not your fault. Manipulation is designed to be invisible until it's too late. You're not stupid. You're not weak. You were targeted by someone who knew exactly how to exploit your love. Heads nodded around the room. One woman wiped tears from her eyes. Second, your independence is worth protecting. No one, not your children, not your family, not anyone, has the right to take from you without permission. Your money represents your security, your choices, your dignity. Defend it. I paused, meeting eyes around the room. And third, it's never too late to fight back. I was 68, alone and terrified, but I reported the crime. I hired an attorney. I gathered evidence, and I won.
The presentation continued. Practical advice, legal resources, warning signs to watch for. But the energy in the room had shifted. People who'd entered hunched and uncertain were sitting straighter, taking notes, asking questions. After the workshop ended, a woman in her 70s approached me, her hands trembling. "My son has been asking for my credit cards," she whispered. "Says it's just to help with groceries. But after hearing you—" "Trust your instincts," I said gently, squeezing her hand, "and call this number." I handed her Mariah's card. "She'll help you protect yourself before it goes further." The woman clutched the card like a lifeline. By the time I left the community center, 5 more people had taken Mariah's information. 3 had shared their own stories of financial abuse, some ongoing, some buried in shame for years. I'd done something, changed something, not just for them, for myself. That evening, I sat on my porch watching the sunset paint my neighborhood in gold and amber. My bank account wasn't fully restored yet. My relationship with my grandchildren was fractured, maybe permanently. Karen's absence left a hole in my life that hadn't healed. But I was still here, still standing, still fighting. The front door to my house, the one I changed the locks on immediately after the trial, represented more than security now. It represented my refusal to be a victim, my choice to reclaim my dignity, my decision that I was worth protecting. Florence Williams, 68 years old, had learned the hardest lesson life could teach, but she'd learned it standing up, and she'd never bow down again.
If this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story of courage, survival, and reclaiming power. Your support helps us share these important narratives with others who need to hear them. Thank you for being here.